On April 14, 2024, three steps set the stage for an unfolding mystery. First, the Houthis made a bold claim, announcing they had struck and disabled the USS Harry S. Truman, a $13 billion aircraft carrier, using drones and missiles. Second, the US military issued a swift denial, backing it with detailed satellite imagery and official statements. Third, the surprising twist: what many believed to be a devastating attack turned out to be the result of a mid-sea collision, not enemy fire. But how did a routine incident become the center of international headlines? The answer begins with the Houthis' extraordinary declaration and the global reaction it triggered. The Houthi claim: a bold declaration or strategic misdirection. On April 14, 2024, the Houthis issued a statement that reverberated through international media. They claimed to have struck a decisive blow against the USS Harry S. Truman, a centerpiece of American naval power. According to Houthi spokesman Yahari, their forces had targeted the carrier not once, but 3 times, in a coordinated assault designed to inflict significant damage. The announcement was crafted to do more than just report a military action. It was meant to signal a shift in the balance of power in the region and to challenge the perception of US invulnerability at sea. Central to their claim were the Quds 4 missiles and Samad 3 drones, weapons that the Houthis described as both innovative and effective. They boasted long-range and swarm tactics, ideal for asymmetric strikes, or so they claimed. The Quds 4, said to be capable of flying over 2,000 kilometers, was highlighted as a symbol of indigenous ingenuity and a direct response to US technological superiority. The Samad 3 drones, meanwhile, were portrayed as stealthy tools for precision attacks, intended to overwhelm even the most sophisticated defenses through sheer numbers. In the Houthi narrative, these systems represented a new phase in the conflict, one where low-cost, scalable weapons could threaten even the most advanced warships. The timing of the announcement was deliberate. With the conflict in Yemen escalating, the Houthis sought to project strength and rally support both domestically and internationally. Their messaging emphasized not a tactical victory, but a strategic message. The era of unchecked US naval dominance could be coming to an end. By asserting that their weapons had breached the Truman's defenses, the Houthis aimed to undermine confidence in American power and to inspire similar tactics among other groups facing technologically superior adversaries. This narrative quickly gained traction. News outlets around the world picked up the story, speculating on the implications of a US carrier being disabled in hostile waters. The symbolism of such an event was not lost on analysts, who noted that a successful strike would mark the first time since the Second World War that an American carrier had been taken out of action by enemy forces. The Houthis played into this narrative, presenting themselves as the vanguard of a new kind of warfare, one in which ingenuity and resolve could offset the advantages of wealth and technology. Yet beneath the surface, skepticism began to emerge. The Nimitz-class carriers, including the Truman, are equipped with some of the most advanced defensive systems in the world. Layers of radar, electronic warfare suites, and missile interceptors form a protective shield around these vessels. The Truman operates alongside Aegis-equipped escorts and relies on early warning aircraft like the E-2D Hawkeye to detect and counter threats at long range. These defenses are designed to make a successful attack by relatively unsophisticated drones and missiles highly improbable. Despite these realities, the Houthis press their narrative. Propaganda has long been a key component of their strategy, and this claim was no exception. By maintaining ambiguity and offering no concrete evidence, they leverage the speed of modern media to amplify their message. Reports from Houthi-controlled areas described a triumphant victory, while international coverage echoed the uncertainty and speculation. The Houthis emphasized the psychological impact of their alleged success, framing it as a blow not just to the US Navy, but to the broader system of Western military dominance in the region. Yahari's public statements reinforced these themes. He claimed that the precision and effectiveness of Houthi weapons would force a re-evaluation of naval strategy worldwide. The narrative was carefully constructed to maximize political and psychological leverage, suggesting that the balance of power in the Red Sea and beyond was shifting in favor of those willing to innovate and take risks. If the attack had truly succeeded, it would have dealt a major blow to US prestige and operational confidence, while emboldening others to adopt similar tactics. However, the gaps in the story became increasingly difficult to ignore. For all the talk of advanced missiles and coordinated drone swarms, no independent evidence surfaced to support the claim. There were no images or videos of a damaged Truman, nor any credible reports from neutral observers confirming the carrier had been struck. Instead, available footage and satellite imagery showed the Truman continuing normal operations in the region. The absence of proof began to erode the credibility of the Houthi account, raising questions about whether the claim was a bold declaration of capability or a calculated act of strategic misdirection. But could these low-cost weapons really breach the Truman's defenses? Experts would quickly raise alarms, and within hours, the narrative would face its first serious test. Unveiling the truth. Satellite images and official statements. But the real proof came from above. Satellite images. As the Houthi claims circulated, the US military responded with immediate transparency. US Central Command released a statement on X, formerly Twitter, confirming that the USS Harry S. Truman was fully operational and undamaged. This was reinforced by satellite imagery from the European Space Agency and independent outlets like Newsweek, which captured the Truman actively conducting routine operations in the Red Sea. The carrier was shown intact, maneuvering with its strike group, its flight deck bustling with activity. These images left little doubt. The narrative of a disabled warship did not match reality. The presence of the Truman, alongside the USS Carl Vinson, signaled an unbroken US commitment to regional security. Together, the two carriers maintained a visible and powerful deterrent in one of the world's most strategically sensitive maritime corridors. Any interruption to their operations would have been impossible to conceal, especially with such clear, real-time visual documentation available to the public and analysts. The official statements continue to dismantle the Houthi narrative. General Alex Grinkowicz, he confirmed that Houthi missiles launched at the Truman had missed by more than 100 miles. This detail not only invalidated the claim of a precision strike, but also underscored the limitations of the Quds-4 missile system. The gap between the Houthis' claims and the technical reality was stark. Rather than demonstrating a new era of asymmetric warfare, the failed attack exposed the challenges of targeting a vessel protected by advanced defenses. Between Aegis escorts, E-2D Hawkeyes, and layered electronic warfare, the Truman was almost untouchable. The carrier's defensive network integrates long-range radar, electronic jamming, and missile interceptors, forming a multi-layered shield against aerial and missile threats. This kill chain is designed to detect, track, and neutralize incoming dangers at every stage. The sophistication and redundancy of these systems make it extraordinarily difficult for low-tech drones or cruise missiles to penetrate, let alone inflict meaningful damage. Despite these facts, rumors persisted due to reports and images showing visible damage to the Truman's hull. Social media discussions intensified, with some suggesting that the Houthis might have succeeded after all. The US Navy and CENTCOM had already dismissed the missile strike theory. But the question remained: what accounted for the damage seen on the carrier? The lack of immediate context allowed speculation to flourish, and adversaries exploited this gap in public information to keep the narrative alive. The answer was rooted not in combat, but in a navigational incident months earlier. On February 16, 2024, the Truman had collided with the Turkish merchant ship Basaktas M near Port Said, Egypt. This routine maritime mishap resulted in above-waterline scuffs and dents. Minor visible imperfections, but nothing that compromised the carrier's operational capability. There were no scorch marks, blast holes, or structural breaches typical of missile impacts. Instead, photos taken days after the incident showed damage consistent with contact from another vessel, not from explosives. Commander Timothy Gorman of the Navy provided the necessary clarification, confirming that the damage sustained by the Truman was purely the result of the collision and had no connection to any hostile action. Navy assessments ruled out explosive residue or signs of missile strikes. further aligning the physical evidence with the timeline of the Besiktas M incident. The timing of the collision, however, became a convenient anchor for the Houthi narrative. The existence of pre-existing damage, even if superficial, lent a veneer of plausibility to their claims, at least until the facts were made public. The episode highlighted a fundamental aspect of information warfare. Without immediate and verified sources, even minor incidents can be manipulated into strategic myths. The Houthis capitalized on a routine maritime accident, weaving it into their broader campaign of psychological and information operations. The US response, rapid release of satellite imagery, official statements, and technical assessments demonstrated the necessity of transparency in countering misinformation. As the dust settled, the Truman's operational status remained unchanged. The carrier's minor repairs were handled quickly, and its mission in the region continued without interruption. The initial confusion over the source of the damage served as a reminder of how quickly narratives can spiral in the absence of clear evidence. Yet the real story of what happened near Port Said was about to come into focus, providing clarity on the incident that sparked so much confusion. The collision that sparked the confusion. On February 16th, 2024, near Port Said, Egypt, a routine transit went awry. At 11:46 p.m., the USS Harry S. Truman grazed the Turkish-flagged Besiktas M, leaving above waterline scrapes. No blast marks. That mundane scrape later fueled a false carrier-killing myth. Both crews checked for casualties. Thankfully, none. The Truman, operating in one of the world's busiest maritime corridors, had encountered the kind of navigational mishap that can occur even under strict protocols and constant vigilance. In the dense nighttime traffic at the entrance to the Mediterranean, a minor miscalculation by either vessel was all it took for a glancing collision to occur. The impact was limited. The Truman's damage was restricted to the outer hull, well above the waterline. Critical systems, engines, propulsion, weapons, radar, and flight operations remained untouched. The Besiktas M, a commercial vessel on a standard shipping route, sustained damage to its port side. Both ships were able to continue under their own power. Commander Timothy Gorman of the US 6th Fleet quickly clarified the situation. There was no danger to the ship. His statement underscored that the event was a minor accident, not a hostile act, and that the Truman's operational status was never in question. Photographs taken 2 days later provided clear, visual confirmation. The Truman's hull bore superficial scrapes and dents. No burn marks, no blast holes, no evidence of explosive residue. The absence of any signs typical of missile strikes or drone attacks was unmistakable. The Besiktas M's damage pattern matched that of a side collision, further supporting the account of a two-ship maritime accident. For naval analysts, these details were enough to rule out any theory of hostile engagement. However, the timing and the visibility of the incident created an opening for misinformation. The Houthis, monitoring global news and always seeking to amplify their narrative, seized on the incident. With few immediate details available to the public, they claimed credit for the Truman's damage, presenting it as the direct result of a precision missile and drone attack. Images of the superficial hull damage circulated on social media, recast as evidence of a successful strike. The Houthi narrative ignored the lack of explosive signatures and the absence of any disruption to the Truman's operations. Instead, they focused on the visual, photos of dents and scuffs, using them to support claims of a historic blow to US military power. This propaganda effort was strategic. By tying the navigational mishap to their ongoing campaign, the Houthis aimed to strengthen their image and demoralize their adversaries. The reality, however, was straightforward. The lack of fire or blast effects and the corroborating reports from both vessels all pointed to a simple shipping accident. The Truman's quick move to a naval facility in Greece for repairs further demonstrated that the incident had no operational impact. Inspections confirmed that only minor sections of the outer hull and a few storage rooms were affected. Repairs began immediately and were completed within days. By February 24th, the Truman was fully mission-ready and returned to its duties in the region. The speed and efficiency of the repairs, along with the ship's uninterrupted deployment, left little room for speculation. The official record, technical assessments, and photographic evidence all converged on the same conclusion. The incident was a navigational mishap, not an act of war. The Houthi claims, while persistent, could not stand against the weight of verifiable facts. Their attempt to transform a routine accident into a propaganda victory illustrated how quickly misinformation can take root when context is absent. As the Truman resumed its operations, the episode underscored the importance of rapid, transparent communication in countering false narratives. The carrier's resilience and the Navy's ability to maintain operational tempo despite minor setbacks sent a clear message. Yet, while the collision itself was resolved, the broader challenge remained. The Red Sea continued to see escalating threats, and the US would soon be forced to respond on a much larger scale. Operation Ruff Rider, turning the tide. Operation Ruff Rider marked a shift in US strategy in the Red Sea. In March 2025, the Navy initiated a coordinated military campaign to counter the persistent threat posed by Houthi drone and missile attacks. The operation's main feature was the deployment of two carrier strike groups, the USS Harry S. Truman and the USS Carl Vinson. This dual carrier force provided continuous air superiority and operational flexibility, allowing for overlapping combat air patrols, rapid arms deployment, and persistent surveillance. The presence of both carriers enabled the Navy to project power across the region, supporting a sustained campaign that targeted the infrastructure underpinning Houthi operations. Ruff Rider struck fuel depots, smuggling routes, and drone factories, choking the Houthis' supply lines. By focusing on these critical nodes, the operation aimed to degrade the Houthis' ability to finance, transport, and deploy their weaponry. The campaign moved beyond simply intercepting incoming threats, instead seeking to dismantle the logistical backbone that supported ongoing attacks. Strikes reached deep into Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen, including underground manufacturing sites near Sana'a. The integration of B-2 Spirit stealth bombers from Diego Garcia and support from the UK Royal Air Force expanded the reach and precision of the operation. These assets allowed for coordinated strikes on hardened or concealed targets, further limiting the Houthis' ability to replenish their arsenal. The results were immediate and measurable. Over 1,000 Houthi-linked targets were destroyed, including command posts, mobile missile units, UAV launch pads, and weapons depots. Real-time combat data showed a 69% reduction in ballistic missile launches and a 55% drop in suicide drone strikes. The disruption of supply chains and destruction of key infrastructure forced the Houthis into a defensive posture, reducing the frequency and scale of their attacks on maritime traffic. The dual carrier deployment enabled the Navy to maintain relentless pressure, launching strikes from multiple directions and denying the enemy time to regroup. Operation Ruff Rider was not without cost. 3 FA-18 Super Hornets from the USS Harry S. Truman were lost to enemy fire, a misfire incident, and an emergency landing. These losses underscored the risks of sustained air operations in a contested environment, even for technologically advanced forces. The dangers extended beyond the air crews. A single strike near Ras Issa caused unintended civilian harm, highlighting the tough balance of precision warfare. The incident drew criticism from international observers and renewed debate over the human cost of military action. Military officials maintained that every effort was made to avoid collateral damage, but acknowledged the inherent difficulty of conducting operations in densely populated areas. The strategic objectives of Operation Ruff Rider extended beyond the immediate destruction of enemy assets. The campaign sought to restore US control of the region's skies and reassert freedom of navigation in a vital maritime corridor. The combined efforts of the US Navy, the UK Royal Air Force, and B-2 bombers demonstrated a unified front and sent a clear signal to regional adversaries. By degrading the Houthis' capacity to wage war, Ruff Rider aimed to deter further attacks and reinforce the credibility of US commitments to its allies. Coordination was central to the operation's success. The dual carrier deployment allowed for continuous operations, with each carrier providing overlapping coverage and the ability to launch strikes from multiple operational zones. The participation of Allied forces and the integration of advanced platforms like the B-2 Spirit increased operational reach and flexibility. The focus on targeting supply lines and critical infrastructure reflected a deliberate effort to achieve lasting effects rather than temporary setbacks. The aftermath of Operation Ruff Rider demonstrated the effectiveness of a comprehensive military campaign grounded in coordination, technological advantage, and strategic targeting. The Houthis' ability to threaten maritime security was significantly reduced, and the Red Sea saw a marked decline in attacks on commercial and military vessels. Yet the operation's results would speak louder than any single controversy. The USS Harry S. Truman's presence in the Red Sea, undeterred by Houthi claims, became a clear signal of American resolve and the realities behind the headlines. Despite efforts to project a false victory, the carrier maintained its mission, ensuring the safety of global trade routes and maritime security. Above all, this episode shows how easily narratives can deceive, and the Truman sailed on, unbroken. If you value truth over propaganda, hit subscribe and join us as we cut through the noise. With the ceasefire only a pause, the Truman remains poised for its next mission, so watch this space.